The last video I made, which this is a reply to, discussed the trolley problem. And essentially, you can commit an act of murder actively, but save, let's say, 5 people. Or you can not do anything, and instead of killing 1 person, 5 will die. From a rational standpoint, it seems utilitarianism would say, save the most people you can. But there's a part of our brain that has evolved that makes it morally repugnant to kill someone actively, even though whether it's active or passive, if you're quite rational about it, is the same thing. And that got me thinking, because even though I'm a YouTube atheist, I'm really a secular humanist. I'll admit it, Star Trek has had a big influence on me. The idea being that atheism is quite limited. You don't believe in God, and that's really it. And I've made arguments saying that atheism is not a cypher, it's more than that. There's humanity involved. Well, what I'm really talking about isn't atheism, I'm talking about secular humanism. I just haven't used that term, I don't believe, before. Speaking of Star Trek, there is a episode in which Spock is in charge of the shuttlecraft, and they're taking hits from some aliens outside, and 2 crew people die, the ones you've never seen before. And Spock says, leave them. Just leave them there. And everyone else says, that's crazy. We've got to bury them. We can't leave them out there. Well, why is that? Spock's right. They're dead meat. They don't exist as human beings anymore. Why put yourself in jeopardy? Well, of course, something happens in the minds of the crew people, and that is that these people are not dead yet. Their bodies are symbolic of them, and they're still alive, and they require respect. This is completely illogical, but it is part of the feelings that we develop as human beings. And I think this is the whole point of the character Spock, who is half human and half Vulcan. And he's fighting this out. But what he finds is when he goes toward pure rationality and pure logic, that it's empty. It's a desert. Now, I made a video which I'm pretty proud of. I give it a B+. I could have worked on it harder and made it an A, but called OneLessDog. The title is a reference to a YouTube character now gone called OneLessGod. And I was going to make it a trilogy. The next one would have been OneLessDog, about the death of my best friend Steve. And then another one would have been One More Less Dog. I never made those for whatever reason, never got around to them, and also I felt that didn't want to then. But anyway, I'd like to talk about the general idea behind One More Less Dog, because it ties into this whole idea of there being more to us than just the logic. There's both, and we have to find a way to get along with both. The part of us that is spiritual, ritualistic, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll make it quick. I'm not going to make it too dramatic, but essentially what happened is Gracie was a pet that my folks had, but I would visit my folks, and I loved her. She was a person. And my father called me and said, she's in bad trouble, we got to get to her to a vet. And when I got there, she was dying, and she died right there. So I saw her alive, and then she was dead. And when we went to bury her, because we couldn't just leave her there, like Spock would have said. Well, we weren't under attack by aliens, and I shouldn't use this levity here, but I can't help myself. When we went to bury her, it was very hot and humid, and some time had passed, a little bit of time, maybe half an hour. And it was very hard work, sweating hot, digging this hole, and when it came time to put her in, she was cold and was already become stiff. And I had this experience that this wasn't her, that she was somewhere else, that who she was cannot be this carcass, this corpse. I was certain of that. Now, not certain on a logical, rational basis, because I run two parallel programs. One is my feelings and the other is my logic. I've done that since I was a kid. I was raised as an atheist. But I had the distinct feeling that she must exist somewhere, that this isn't possible. Very emotional kind of feeling. And then when we put her in to the hole, the grave, there was a chew toy, and I looked at it, and I picked it up, and I put it in. I looked at my dad, and he was a little bit uncomfortable, because he's an atheist too, and this is not the thing atheists do. Well, I think it's the thing that secular humanists do, because it felt right. And he kind of nodded then that, yeah, okay, it felt right. Of course, it's completely illogical. She's gone. This toy isn't going to help her. It helps us because of the way our minds work. Because even though I could rationally say, she is gone, that's it, kaput, at the same time I felt that she was still there, and putting the toy with her there was somehow a way of that toy going with her, and, you know, that's how human beings work, because our brain has evolved over a long time. And I looked up in the sky, and it was overcast. And it was a white cloud cover, and I looked through an Australian pine, and I saw the sky as a prism through the needles with colors that weren't there. I just saw them, and I had a deeply spiritual experience. Now, I didn't say there was a God or that Gracie's up there in the sky. I thought I am having a particular state of consciousness here, but I embraced it. When I told my father about it later on, he was uncomfortable with it, because that's kind of wacky. But you see, I've come to understand to run this parallel program of logic as well as spirituality. That's one of the reasons I like N.D. Clark. He is an atheist preacher. I don't want to call him a secular humanist. Maybe he wouldn't like that category. But he's definitely a preacher. And I was talking on the phone with a really good friend. And she was telling me about her life, and it was a tough life. And it kind of went into the life of someone else who also had a very tough life that we both know and love. And after that conversation, I was watching TV, and I just happened to see Joel Osteen, I think, the most popular preacher in America. And I started to watch. I like people that have great oratory skills. It's interesting to see them. But it was very spiritual. He was talking about God, and he was saying that, you know, if you've been put down upon and that people have trampled on you, that you can overcome this because you have genes, the genes of God. God is your Father. Very inspirational. Now, I don't believe in God, but I felt the message, the power of that, how to uplift people. I realized, of course, secular humanism can never compete with a parent figure that will watch over you, that will care for you. We have to put that into humanity. But I also think we can't get rid of the spiritual nature of what we are. And we should run both the rational and logical along with the irrational together. Because to deny that part of us is to deny who we are. And that would be irrational. I know, clever twist of words and all like that. Well, I've got a lot more ideas about this, but I've learned that if I keep talking too much, I stop making sense. So I will just thank you for listening.